Hi guys, and welcome to the side-by-side video comparison footage between the Feiyu-Tech Summon and the Feiyu-Tech G4S with a Hero camera mounted to it. Both of them 3-axis handheld gimbals. Both of them I've done recent reviews for on my video channel, and the links for those reviews are below in the description. The Feiyu-Tech Summon was the more recent one, so this is kind of catering towards people who have recently watched that video, but by all means, if you either own a G4S or you're thinking of owning a G4S, then this could be quite useful for you too. Now, you've just seen photos of the rig that I'm using to get this side-by-side shot, and on the left hand side we have got the Feiyu-Tech G4S. I have got a Hero 4 Silver mounted to it. It's running 1080 at 60 frames a second. I do not have ProTune on, and it is in its wide field of view. The Summon is running also at 1080, 60 frames a second. It's also in its widest field of view, and I should note that I've also got the anti-distortion mode on as well. So the format of this video is literally just going to be me walking through this large open environment local to me, and it just gives you the chance to see these two side by side. Now obviously they're very different shots, as we can already see, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that before I leave you guys to continue watching it. I'm also going to mention a few things that I think you should look out for in terms of how you compare these two cameras and these two gimbals together, and then I'll just do a few audio comparisons as well, so you can see, well, basically how horrendous the Summon audio is and the motor noise that comes from it. But I'll just flip between the two camera mics, and that will tell you everything you need to know. So the first thing that I noticed when I looked at this footage back was the difference between the field of view. Obviously I knew what to expect out of the Hero. I own several Hero cameras. I know it gives a very, very nice wide field of view, and it's something that in an open environment like this is very nice. What was very interesting is, regardless of the fact I've been using the Summon quite recently, is I hadn't really picked up on just how narrow the field of view is compared to something like the GoPro camera. Now, whether or not it's doing this via the lens or whether it's doing it digitally is yet to be decided. Something about it tells me that they've basically zoomed in the wider image to try and remove the fisheye effect. Now, the anti-distort mode, as I said before, is on, so there isn't that fisheye effect, but I know with a GoPro camera, if you go into narrow field of view, for example, all it does is it digitally zooms into kind of a box within the wide field of view. So it's then rendering that at 1080, so it's kind of a fake narrow mode. And something tells me that Feiyu-Tech may be doing a similar sort of thing with the camera on the Summon. With that said, it's not necessarily a bad thing. One of the problems with using a Hero camera on a stabilizer is if you actually get up close to objects, you know, people or other objects that you're filming like you would with a normal camcorder, they can get very distorted because of the large fisheye effect that you get on a GoPro camera. So it may simply be that Feiyu-Tech decided they wanted a narrower field of view for it. Now, the downside to this, as you can see as we're just walking along, is that you get more kind of lumpiness. There are more gyration, more vibration through footsteps, because as anyone knows who's used a camera with a zoom on it, when you've got a zoom lens and you zoom into something, it becomes much more sensitive to the motion of the camera. So if you wiggle, if you breathe, if you cough, it will pick it up, whereas a nice zoomed out shot is much less susceptible to it. And that in its own respect means that the footage from the G4S probably looks a bit smoother than the footage from the Summon. So again, something that you just need to bear in mind and look at whilst you're watching the footage. The other thing I'm going to comment on is the colour. I know for a fact that the GoPro, because I'm not running in ProTune mode, does actually make a kind of a rendering of the colours when it actually creates the video. Now, the idea is it makes things more vibrant. The greens are a bit brighter. The contrast between light and dark is a little bit more apparent. The blues in the skies, everything like that. Now, I personally quite like that. Some people really don't like it. Some people much prefer to run in ProTune mode so they can do their own post-production in terms of colour. But what's quite interesting is the Summon, in terms of colour, actually picks up colours very well. I would say it's certainly a much more realistic rendition of the colours as they were at the time, so a plus point on the Summon certainly in that respect. Now, the other thing, if you've already watched the video review, is I commented on the softness of the Summon image, and I think I was actually being a little bit harsh on it. What was quite interesting is when I reviewed these two bits of footage was how I got struck by how soft both of the images were. Now, I think unfortunately that's purely for the fact that recently I've been doing so much work in 4K, and I've got a 4K TV and monitor now, that I'm so used to that super sharp, crisp feel of 4K that I'd forgotten what the actual 1080 view looked like from, you know, a GoPro or the Summon. So actually the softness of the footage I don't think is too bad. Now, unfortunately, you guys will be watching this in a YouTube video, so there's going to be the post-production that YouTube does, and unfortunately the processing will mean that everything looks a bit softer than it actually was. But as we walk through these trees, just look at the detail, look at how it picks up the colours and everything like that, and I actually think that the Summon does a reasonable job of it. So with all that said, I'm going to leave you guys to make your own decisions now. Hope you enjoy it. Please feel free to comment. I'd love to get some opinions of what you think of every aspect of both of these bits of footage, and fingers crossed it will help you decide whether or not you would like to buy a Summon.